taking care of people will get you a long ways. And if you don't know the technical side of things, there's someone there that can help answer that question. But you have to take care of people first.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a very good friend of mine who I've spent a lot of time with probably over the last couple of years at this point. And really just trading ideas and understanding how he's building his company out on the East Coast. And just really excited to have him on here today to share his story and a lot of the lessons learned and things that they're doing to grow their company. So without any further ado, would like to welcome Jamie Miller of Miller Services. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chad. It's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to have you on here and let listeners in on kind of your story and what you're building out there. So I guess to get started, why don't you give the listeners a little bit of your background and the story of the company and different things like that.
Yeah, sounds great. So 50 plus years ago in 1973, my grandparents started a company that was called Miller Septic Tank Service, and they ran that business. My grandmother ran it up until I bought her out in the end of 2001, beginning of 2002. And at that time, it was me and a septic pump truck. And then after that, we just started growing. I started adding different things. We bought a few small companies locally that were septic companies or acquired them. And then I got into more septic trade services, service and maintenance, and a little bit of drain cleaning and installation. And then we went from there and added plumbing. Then we added electrical because we had a need for an electrician. And so one thing led to another, and we got into electrical. And then the last thing that to tie into full home services was we added heating, cooling. And that was really because I had a desire to get into it, but also I had customers that said, "Hey, we use you for everything else. Can you help us with this?" And so one thing led to another. It was a very rocky and interesting road, but we're starting to figure things out and getting there. So that's kind of the story. It all started in 1973, and now my sister and I own the company together and run and operate the company.
What? How many people do you guys have?
We're between 100 and 110 employees.
And the reason I ask is just to give kind of listeners context, because I know as we've talked over the years, it's, there's a lot to do with kind of timing. When do I add this position? When do I add that one? What's this look like? So on and so forth. So I guess, starting as a septic company and then adding these trades, what are some, what are some lessons learned from adding the different trades? I know I have what seems like a novel at this point of what to do, what not to do, probably more what not to do is at this point in time. But what are some of the things you learned from kind of adding the trades and things that, you look back upon and say, "Oh, I wish I would have known that."
We started as septic, and what I saw was that I was in customers' homes and they needed a lot of other services, and they asked, for help. And that's kind of how one thing led to another. But developing people has been a big challenge, and I don't think you ever stop learning how to develop people. We've definitely been successful at promoting employees to incompetence, I like to say. When you take your best guy out of the field and you put him into a different position, and then he's really an apprentice again. But that's probably been the biggest challenge, is growing people. And then as you scale and you grow, you find out that every day you need a new position or you need a new something that you didn't realize you needed, whether it be, support or equipment or trucks or, different software or whatever have it be, insurance, everything changes, HR, accounting. And as you grow it, you have to stay ahead of it. So thinking ahead and understanding that, asking good questions to other people in the industry helps get you ahead of the game a little bit.
This is something I deal with quite a bit and have as the company's grown is, as the leader, you got to kind of take on different roles at, different junctures. You can't always be the one doing the work. You can't always be, there's just so many things. What are some of those things that you've kind of had to tackle personally as a leader through this growth journey, going from you and a pump truck to 107 people, that's a whole different ball game there. What are some of the things that you've kind of learned about yourself or had to kind of figure out along the way about you and your leadership at the company?
Well, I grew up doing everything myself, and that's how I was raised. My dad is still that way. He still runs a construction company, and that's how I was raised, to do everything yourself. So it's been very difficult to be hands off or to be willing to delegate, be willing to trust somebody to do something, understanding that they're not going to do it perfect. That's been really tough. And then as you grow and you scale, and you have these departments you have to hire, you have to put managers in place to take over. When to step in, when not to step in, when to let them fail. At some at some point in time, sometimes you have to stop the failure because it might be, catastrophic, but you have to allow them to learn. So that's been a huge struggle for me as a leader, and even still to today, there's still things that I'm involved with, and so I have to walk the line of, how to provide some support, but not be overbearing as owner of the company, and how not to overshadow, my manager or leader in that department, and allow him still to lead the department, but not because if not, then it'll be a mommy daddy game, and they'll come straight to me. So it's a struggle because there's a lot of things I know how to do and know what to do, and so you just have to kind of allow things to unfold and watch it as you grit your teeth and just hope for the best sometimes.
Yeah, and I always tell people I got a little bit lucky in that I was never in the like done any of the trade. So my ability to develop trust for people that, could do it was, I think, a little bit easier. Because I didn't know anything. So I had to trust somebody to figure it out because I couldn't fix the furnace. And so that was one of those things. And I always look at companies that were a technician role and they know how to do everything, right? I can only imagine how difficult that would be to like, oh, this is my craft. Like I know what to do, when to do it. I know I'm thinking about 8 things ahead of what this problem may be because I've done it. And I think that's just an interesting thing that I think a lot of owners, especially in the trades, have to grapple with is putting up the tool belt and allowing somebody else to do that. Well, I guess what are some of those things that you feel like have allowed you? Because I'm sure there's other listeners that are going through the same thing right now, right? It's like I can't trust anybody to do anything. What are some of the things that you've done kind of along the way that you found that have worked in kind of facilitating that kind of transition for you?
You just have to learn to trust. You have to really sit back and know where you want to go. And at some point in time, someone probably just told me, hey, you've got to allow someone else to do it. I struggle right now still with, if I know how to do something maybe a better way or a different way, how to train. I'm not a very good trainer. So how do I teach someone how to do that? I struggle with that part, but I think it was just a conscious decision that I had to give up, and I had to say, well, they have to do it. And then there's times when I step back in, but it's really been tough. And I still enjoy getting my hands, dirty, or getting my hands in the middle of it. But there's times when I do, and it causes problems. So I have to be very careful about that.
Yeah, and I think you're at an interesting point. I remember back, kind of that 100 employee kind of count where you can still touch. Like I get the benefit of now, like I can't even. I'm like a 3 or 4 layers removed from actually like the actual like work that's being done, which frustrates me some, but that's a whole other episode. But you're still kind of in that kind of where I can touch it. I'm close enough to touch it, but then I've got to stay out of it. Kind of that inflection point of that transition piece. I think one of the things that you said there is really important, and I talk to a lot of people about this is knowing where you want to go. If you don't know where you want to go, you developing as a leader and kind of transitioning in different roles, well, you don't know that it needs to change in order to get there. Where do you see your company in 5 years? Where do you want to be? What's that look like?
I have some really big aspirations and some really big dreams. I'd like to see this company double or triple in the next 3 to 5 year period. There's a lot of things that have to happen to make that happen, and developing people is one of them. I have some dreams of building, which we already have, maybe something hybrid, but building a trade school and just giving back. We do a lot with the local schools, so building that out and giving back to the trades, to provide a different opportunity for these young kids getting out of high school. I flunked out of college, and I went for a semester and flunked out. And then I tried some community college, and it wasn't for me, and then I went into business and I started. So that's kind of my dream and my vision is to grow the company, to provide more opportunity, to give more careers and not just jobs, to give people an opportunity to grow and get ahead in life, and grow it from something local to more regional in my area and in the state of Virginia. And it's kind of my dream and my passion and a legacy that I want to leave behind. But I'm on a path right now to find myself as far as, and how do I become a better leader? How do I become a leader that not just locally, but that would be known, maybe nationwide? How do I become the best leader possible to lead people? And it all came to me. My son plays football and baseball, and I watched the coaches. Well, I'm not a football or baseball coach, but how do I become a coach, and how do I lead the kids and young adults to get ahead and be what they want to be in life? That's kind of my passion. That's my vision. So to grow the company and then develop a school, which I would call Miller's University.
I think the reason why I'm so excited about where the trades are right now, because I think it's leaders like yourself that have a grander vision for more than just doing the work. Like, yes, the work is super impactful, and we can't live without technicians who work on this stuff. I think it's really cool to see, because I don't think 20 years ago, I don't think we'd be having this conversation in the trades. Like, there weren't a whole lot of people that were, I'm going to build a trades organization to impact lives and leadership and coaching and so on and so forth. And I think it's just a testament to, all the hard work that so many people have put in along the way, so that, people like yourself and me, that we can grow companies where people can have careers and, raise families and send their kids to college and do whatever it is that they want to do with their life. So I think that's so cool, and appreciate you sharing that. One of the things I want to dive into too, mainly because I get asked this question a lot because I work with my brother. You work with your sister, and she's definitely a rock star. How do you guys kind of like divvy up responsibilities? How does that work? Because it's a question I get asked all the time. How do you make it work with a family member?
So that's a really interesting question, and something that we're still struggling with, because both of us are involved in a lot of things of the business. So, there was a point in time when Ashley and I did not get along. We fought and argued every day. But I believe that it's 100 times better than it ever was. We have some direction on what I do, what she does. We still intermingle a little bit because there's a lot of things she knows and a lot of things I know. So right now, I'm kind of the visionary of the company. You've probably read the book Rocket Fuel. And so I read that book, and it talks about the visionary and integrator. And so I'm kind of the visionary person. She's the integrator person. But Ashley loves operations. So she's in the daily operations. She actually basically oversees as operations manager in the company, and really works with the operational managers every day on everything they have going on. Where I fall into place is really with the septic or the underground department, the excavation, the plumbing, and then some of the other stuff where some of these guys need some technical help that I can affect because I've been in it so long. And like you said, at our size, I'm still kind of in the middle of some things. What's been good is I can go on the job with the managers or with the guys, and I don't want to say be their friend, but I can be there as a coach on a technical side, and she's still their manager. And where I'm diving into is really on the support side of the company. The accounting department, both her and I work with, because she's heavily into the accounting. So we both work on that. She's probably more into it than I am, but we both work on that side of things. Marketing, we both are part of. I'm overseeing HR and really looking at how do we develop and grow people faster and better? How do we develop people inside of our company? How do we make them more successful? How do we bring people in to make them successful? That's some things you and I have talked about a lot. And then on the warehouse and inventory. So I'm kind of fulfilling the support role, and she's more of the direct daily operations role. But we both commingle a little bit, and it's tough to make sure everybody's communicating at our size. It takes an army to make it happen, and her and I have to get along and work well together. But I do enjoy working with her, and I enjoy where we're at. We both have our strengths and weaknesses, and we play off each other.
For sure. One question I want to ask. You said it wasn't good before. Why? What are some of the keys that you think made it better? What advice would you give to say, hey, these are some of the things that Ashley and I did that made things better? And I know it's like evolving, but just like maybe a few keys of like, oh yeah, this really helped and got you to where you are now.
Really, it was me sitting down and just being vulnerable and understanding what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And her, I had to be vulnerable and she had to accept it. And, I had to just be willing to give it up and just not, not be a tyrant and not want to hold on to everything and allow someone else to take over and do some things. Just really respecting each other. Up until a couple of years ago, there were still some times when we didn't communicate, and now we communicate a lot more. And that's the key. You can't just run 100 mile an hour every day and not talk. When you're a team, you've got to spend time and talk. And so I find that the more we communicate, the better we are, the better we work together, and just really being open and honest about each other, and basically allowing her to do what she likes to do well. And I do the same thing.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. The vulnerability piece is something that I have been kind of learning over the last, call it, year or so. And I think that's something that is so critical, especially in the trades, because I feel like there's always that in the trades, it's the tough exterior and, show no weakness. And, we don't whine and cry. We just go get work done. And don't get me wrong, that's how I was raised. It's, my wife teases me all the time because my family and emotions were two foreign substances, oil and water. But what I found is that sharing those emotions and telling people how you feel and being vulnerable is the superpower. And it's like, oh my God, I wish I would have known this for the last 10 years, because it would probably make a lot of my relationships a hell of a lot better than they are today. Because I felt like early on in my journey, it was always trying to be who I thought other people needed me to be. And at the end of the day, I just needed to be myself. And if I struggled with something or I wasn't good at something, that was okay, because no one's good at everything. And so I think that I really appreciate you sharing that. It's been kind of like it's not a crusade, but like something I've just been on of like, hey, we just need to understand like that we're all going through stuff. We're all having tough times, and we all need each other to, move forward.
Yeah. I mean, I was that same technician. I promoted myself to incompetence, and Ashley too, we didn't go to school to be leaders. It's evolution, you're learning. And so, you have to have a little bit of grace and understanding. And so communication, being vulnerable. And, I remember a conversation, I was mad about something, and I said, what do you want me to do? And because she was doing a little bit of everything and I was doing a little bit of everything, and our managers were confused because she would say one thing and then I would say one thing, and it was just back and forth. And we finally sat down, and she said, just do what you want to do. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. You do what you want to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. And then let's figure out the pieces. And I think that was probably one of the most monumental conversations. And then we figured that out. And, now I believe we communicate. If I feel like one of us is in the middle of something we shouldn't, then I try to discuss that. And there's times when she says, I don't really care. I don't need to know about it. I know what's going on. You just handle it. And if you need me, let me know. And I try to do the same thing. But it's not easy. We are learning along with everybody. And I believe that we have a huge opportunity in front of us. And I have some big goals and targets to go after. So we just keep working together and make it happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's so critical. And maybe the piece that I think listeners can take away is, yeah, if you're working with a partner, whether it's family or not, like, what do you want to do? Like, what are you doing that you love to do? Because that's where you're going to be at your best, right? What are those things that you love doing? Let's do those. Oftentimes, I feel like it's when you sit down and really sketch out what it is that you really like to do. Like, my brother does a lot of things right now that he loves to do. I'm sure there's probably stuff in there that he doesn't like to do, but hey, that comes with the territory. But he said, I like to do these things. I said, I like to do these things. Okay, well, let's just stay in those lanes. And then, yeah, we'll collaborate and communicate. And I need to let you know. I think anytime that we have a breakdown, it's simply because we didn't communicate. Like, I'm over here doing something and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't tell you that we were doing this, and now that's affecting you. And it's really just being open to communicate, letting each other know where things are, and then we just move forward. And because we're all aiming at the same thing. So just figure out what it is that you want to do. And whatever it is that you want to do is perfectly fine. There is no right answer. It's your answer. One of the other things I wanted to dive into, because I've met a number of people on your team, and I know some of the people that you've gotten from outside the industry. And I think that's another question I get a lot is like, where do you find all these people? Or what are they doing? Or, how did they come into the trades and figure this out? Yeah, can you give me an example, and just use one person and maybe as an example of someone you got from outside the industry that's playing maybe a critical role in the company today, and how'd you go about finding them, and what are they doing, and things of that nature?
So probably the key person that I think about, at our size, I have a lot of employees that have always been in the industry, and a lot of my field managers, and department managers have been in the industry, or some I'll say construction industry, some of them. But my HR manager, which is Amber, which came out with me and visited your shop at one point in time, she did some stuff in the construction industry for a much, much larger company. It was more road construction, but then she worked for the government for a little while. She also did some things with the National Science Foundation. So she has a vast knowledge of how to train people, how to develop people, HR, and skills like that. I go to her a lot when I have an idea, because I can run it by her or ask her some questions, because she can relate to other industries and other things she's done. And we just did a complete all company survey, anonymous survey through Nexstar recently for the year. And we got back some results that were, some were great and some were not great, but we took them all and we're doing something with them. But she has some unique experience with surveys, actually with the same company doing surveys. She's able to bring that to the table for us and say, well, this is what we did. This is how we did it. This is how we improved. And so now we can add some other things and do some different things based off of her experience. So that's probably the one person. Emily, which is our executive assistant, she pretty much helps Ashley and I, and also does a lot of other things for all the other managers. She's not just an executive assistant. She's assistant to whoever needs something. She was in a bunch of different industries. And so she has a lot of great feedback and great advice on different things because of what she did. She worked for a bunch of different companies. So it's good to get those different opinions and different experiences. They bring a lot to the table because of that.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the most impactful things that we've been able to experience as we've grown, is just getting different voices at the table. For so long, you have a meeting and everybody's been in the trade for 15 years. It's like, okay, well, we're not going to have many new ideas come out of this group right here because all we've seen is this. We don't even know what's out there in this, world of different ideas and different ways of thinking about things, which I think is fantastic. And obviously you guys are seeing some of the fruits of that idea.
I also have a department manager that he manages my entire underground excavation department. Now he did work in the trades a little bit before he came to us. We're in the construction industry, but he spent 20 years in the Army, and he has a vast amount of knowledge of leadership and management and different ways of working with people. I've honestly learned a lot from him. I suck as a manager, but I've learned a lot from him on how to deal with guys and how to get better performance out of people. And so that's helped in a lot of ways too.
Yeah. And I think that's a key point too, is, I think so often we kind of hold ourselves hostage by thinking that, someone with that technical background has to be the, leader of that place, when I think it's really just getting it, really understanding what that manager needs to do. Our managers, we basically say you've got 3 key things. You need to spend a third of your time in one-on-one meetings and coaching your people. And that doesn't always mean technical. That just means like, what's going on in life, or what are you struggling with? How can I help? The other third of their time is supposed to be spent out in the field. It's very difficult to manage people and or help or coach them if you can't see them doing the things that they're doing. And then the other third they can spend on the management task. But really the 2/3 of your time is spent with your people. And I think so often we get it wrong when, as you said, we promote them to incompetence, and we've done our fair share of that. And then not supported those people in a role that they don't have any idea. Just because they were a great technician isn't going to make them a great manager. We've got to train them on the skills that they need to be that. And so I think that's important to understand as people think about, well, how would I ever bring somebody from outside the industry into the business? Well, I guess I'm proof of you don't have to have the technical background and you can figure out the industry, because at the end of the day, it's customer service. How do we provide great customer service? And yes, we have to understand the technical piece of it. But as I've grown up in the business, I've learned that the technical piece is, as you understand the customer service piece of it, it's a very small sliver of the pie in knowing the technical piece. A lot of it is just basically, how do I, 1, create a place that people want to work, and 2, deliver great customer service.
I couldn't agree more. Taking care of people will get you a long ways. And if you don't know the technical side of things, there's someone there that can help answer that question. But you have to take care of people first, and you have to communicate. And that's sometimes the hardest thing to train is communication, customer service. My sister is the same way. She, our dad has been in the building construction business his whole life. So she grew up around all this, but she was never involved in it like I was. She went to school, went to college, got an education. She came on board and worked with my dad for a little while, and then came on board with us. And then, ultimately her and I are co-owners now of the business. But everything that she's learned from the trades has been basically from the office. She's learned to do this. And what she doesn't know, the technical side of things, she leans on me or the other managers or the other people in the company, but she's able to focus on the customer service and the caring part and all the other parts and pieces that have to go along with that.
What's your dad think about you and your sister building what you built?
He told me the other day, he said, I never thought that, this little mom and pop septic business would be what it is today. He said, but I am super proud of both of you. And I don't understand it. He said, I don't understand how you're doing what you're doing. Him and I probably argue every day about stuff because he helps us with some technical things on the building side. We run into a problem. That's what he told me all day. He said, I don't know how you guys do what you do, but I'm super proud of you. And, he's excited to see the future and be a part of it and watch it all happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I asked that question because obviously my dad started our company. And so it's, I think probably deal with some similar stuff, because he was one that needs to know everything. I mean, I think he still looks at Service Titan daily to like see what kind of jobs are going on and different stuff like that, which is great. That's where his comfort zone is. And I think, to your point about, his comment about he just doesn't understand it, but he is proud. I think that's something, they may never understand it. They may not want to understand it, because it's just not what they're passionate about, is understanding that. But knowing that they are proud is the thing that I think, as a child, as a son or a daughter, that's what you're looking to do, right? Make your parents proud. And sometimes when they don't understand it, you don't feel that. And so that's awesome that he's able to verbalize that, and that, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I'm making my parents proud.
Yeah, the fact that not just what we've done in the company, but he watched it closely. He was much more involved in the company when it was much smaller, and when Ashley and I did not get along, we argued day in, day out. And that was the whole thing he told me all day. He said, I really am happy to see that you and your sister get along well and what y'all are doing together. He said, I couldn't be happier. That's the only thing I wanted to see in life, was two of y'all get along and work together. And so that's a big part of it. But, you both have to work through your own struggles, and you have to learn. And I mean, we're still learning every day, but it's not easy, but you just have to keep pushing through.
Well, and I think it goes back to your point about the vulnerability, right? Like, if you weren't willing to be vulnerable, the company could have tore you guys apart. And being vulnerable allowed you to build something really special, where there's 105 people that are probably very, very proud of you and thankful that you were vulnerable. Your vulnerability allowed for 105 people to be employed today, to earn a paycheck, to take care of their family, and to do all of those things. And I think that's where vulnerability gets a bad name. But it's through that vulnerability that we're able to build those relationships with, our sister, or, employees and different things like that, that I think ultimately make us stronger in the end, when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. It feels very not fun. But when you do it, I think amazing things can be gained from that, for sure. I guess as we leave, what's the one thing that at your size right now that you are really focused on and trying to figure out, that you think is kind of that, if we get this figured out, this is going to kind of open the door to that next level of growth?
Yeah. So right now, we have a small leadership team, and we don't really have a, what you would call maybe an executive level leadership team. It's just Ashley and I, and her and I meet, and Emily, our executive assistant, meets with us. But our leadership team, it's about 13, 14 of us, maybe something like that. So we're together working through a book called The Five Dysfunctions. And we're working through processes and worksheets on that. And it's very interesting that if you read the book, it's a quick read. It's, 3.5 hours or something, or you can listen to it on Audible. It's a great book. And it speaks about my company, so the biggest struggle we have right now is building our leaders, because the book tells you that, your first team is your leadership team in that instance, right? And so that is your first team that you have to focus on. What we've got to figure out right now is how to build our leaders and have them be more successful. And that's the biggest part of it. How do you build your leaders to be better leaders, better managers? And even myself and my sisters, how do her and I elevate to be better leaders, and how do we elevate our leadership and management team to then elevate everyone below them? That is the biggest struggle we have. And that's one of the things that I'm putting a lot of focus into right now.
Yeah, I think that's so critical. And I think too, if we both looked back, I think we'd probably both agree that we wish we'd have started this earlier, because it could unlock some serious, serious growth. It doesn't seem like it in the beginning. It's like, oh, how do I get more leads? How do I run more jobs? How do I get more revenue? When, the thing that I've learned, over the last couple of years is, really it's finding great people, and then, training them, figuring out how we can grow them. Because at the end of the day, our field professionals have to be led by somebody, and they're either going to be led by a bad manager or they're going to be led by a really good one. And the likelihood of them producing really great results and getting all of those other things that you need are probably far greater if they have a great manager that, knows where they need to spend their time, has all of the tools to be successful. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there working on it. We're hoping to, as I talked earlier before the show, hoping to build some resources that people, not only in the trades, but, across any industry can use to build those leaders. I think it's so important. And ultimately, that's what's going to help scale our companies.
Leadership training is, whether you are leading yourself or leading your family or leading, what I'm seeing is that leadership training is almost one of the most important things that we should be training everybody. And the more we can do of that, the better off we are to build everybody up, even if they're just leading themselves.
Well, again, Jamie, I can't thank you enough for your time, spending a little bit of it on here. Hopefully, I know we did, help some people work through some things and things to consider. Overall, I just really appreciate the time, and it's been great getting to know you over the last couple of years. Exciting stuff, and looking forward to kind of that next chapter, which is great. So, again, as we sign off today, remember, growth is a journey. It's all about taking the small steps forward every single day. Keep pushing yourself, embracing new challenges, and never stop striving for progress. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and remember, you can't stop the growth.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.